Welcome to the Money Pig Podcast, presented by Goodwin Investment Advisory, where our mission is to lead you to financial pig, peace, independence, and generosity. I'm your host, Tim Goodwin. And welcome back to the Money Pig Podcast. Today I'm here with Justin Pitcock. We're going to be talking about how to estimate what your expenses will be in retirement. Before we do, though, Justin, I got a question for you.
What is that?
Do you know, you're already laughing. Do you know what kind of car a sheep likes to drive? A Lamborghini. But I did like the
That makes a lot of sense.
On the lamb.
Dad jokes 101
Dad
here.
jokes 101. You know, I'm making everybody go through it. But hey, thanks for being here today.
Was that a same joke on the last episode?
No, I'm trying to add new. I've got to like really dig into my content here. So,
man, that's a good one.
So you know, even if the content's not interesting, maybe it's the dad joke helps out.
If nobody laughs, at least we did.
That's true. We're gonna have a good time. Okay, we're gonna have a good time. So, hey, well, let's just go ahead and jump right in. So, why is it? I like to start with why. Why is it important for us to think about how to estimate our expenses in retirement?
Well, it never dawned on me how challenging that is for most people to estimate. And so I've been doing this for 6 years now, and when I sit down with somebody to do their retirement plan, I ask, well, how much money would you like per month in retirement? If you were to retire today, we can adjust the rest of it for inflation. And if I'm sitting down with a couple, they just look at each other like, I have no idea.
So like not I would expect this like if they're in their 20s or 30s, but you're talking about sitting down with somebody that's
in
like,
their 50s.
In their 50s.
And so it is extremely rare that a couple or individual knows like how much they would need like on a monthly basis in retirement. And actually one of my clients said, Justin, why don't you do a podcast on that? It's like,
here we
genius.
are.
Here we are.
Right. Well, let's send it to him. See what he thinks.
Absolutely. So the exercise that I work clients through is we actually solve for what your expenses are because most people don't know. And the way we do that, I have them say, okay, look at your bank account. How much money do you have coming in every month?
Mm-hmm. You're saying before they retire?
Like before they retire, like right now, like today or this past month or the previous month, how much money did you have come into your bank account? All right, so we start with that number. That's after they've saved in their 401k. That's after they've paid their health insurance. That's after any sort of those payroll deductions. That's how much they have to spend. Now, maybe they're saving more money out of that, like putting it into a joint account, like a non-retirement account, or maybe they're saving for a particular purchase. I might encourage them to leave that money in because they're going to need to buy a new car in retirement probably at some point in time.
Yeah,
but if they're putting money away in addition to what was taken out of their paycheck for the 401k, we want to subtract that number. So I look at money coming into the bank account minus what's going to retirement savings that's non-retirement accounts.
So you're jumping right in. I just want to make sure we don't miss it. And I get why some of the clients have this like deer in the headlights kind of look.
Yes.
How much do you need in retirement? They're like, I don't know, because I think what they do know is that a lot of things will change.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of things will be different. And you're talking about a really, really big one, which is, well, you don't have to save for retirement anymore.
That's
when you're retired.
Yep. And
that's a big one.
We're going to adjust for other expenses too.
Okay.
So, for a younger family, maybe they've got daycare expenses or, somebody that's got kids that are in college. They're cash flowing their kids' college. So let's subtract out those expenses. We know how much is coming in every month. We can subtract out certain expenses that are not going to, occur in retirement. We subtract that out. You're still going to have, taxes that's been deducted out of your paycheck unless you're self-employed. So we kind of have adjusted for that number. We can then zero in on what your current lifestyle is. And so now that we know what the current your current cost of living is, we can adjust that for inflation. And maybe we use a 2.5% inflation estimate or a 3% inflation estimate. We can run different numbers, but we can adjust that up for inflation. So maybe you're retiring in 10 years. Okay, let's figure out what your standard of living is today.
Yeah.
Then adjust it up for inflation.
I gotcha. So when I think as well about, when maybe somebody retires, what would they stop paying for? So, you were talking about They're not saving for retirement. Maybe they're not having to put kids through college
Child
anymore.
care, college.
You know, one thing too, and I know, the mortgage, for example, that's a big one, right?
Big one.
You know, maybe that's paid off by the time they retire. Maybe they retire, but they still have a couple years left, right? So we plan for that. And I know we kind of live in this world now where a lot of people work remote, but if you're commuting to work,
oh gosh.
I mean, Ray, who works with us, I mean, he's, you know, he's got like a 45-minute commute, you know, so does Tara. So, you know, if you're not doing that commute anymore, think about the wear and tear on your vehicle, on top of the tires you're replacing more often, on top of the gas is the bigger part, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then depending on what you've got to wear at your job, there's a clothing expense. So I think there are some other things that we may not think of as tangible or as large as the 401k or mortgage that really do add up.
When you're out and about, you tend to spend more money. So that's one thing. I mean, all the wear and tear and gas and all that, but you're not out and about as much, so you're spending less money generally. Most retirement studies show that a retiree will spend between 70 and 80% of what they spend while they're working. So
crazy. I was just about to ask you, is there like a replacement ratio? So there's kind of a typical amount. So if somebody's like right about to retire, right? You're saying that for the most part, they could maintain their lifestyle just switching from working to retiring by just having about 70 to 80% of the income they currently have.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, so that figures that your expenses are 70 to 80%. Like you'll spend 70 to 80% of what you've been spending.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So
right.
So that's I mean that's a big thing. Most people will not spend as much in retirement, and I think there's a mental component to that too, because you've been saving your whole life. You've been working so hard to build up this nest egg, and almost everybody is very hesitant to spending any of it. So we're with our retirement planning meetings, and as we work, you know, every year we want to update a client's financial plan, and we're generally encouraging them, hey, you've got the ability to spend more. Like, it's okay. You've worked hard. You've built this nest egg. You can spend more of it. And there's this mental barrier that's really hard to break through.
Have you ever sit down with a client, do their financial plan, and part of their plan that they're asking for is when they're retired, how much they save for retirement? I mean, it's rare and uncharacteristic, but like when you're talking about that mentality of like they've been saving their whole life, they'll even want me to build into their expenses how much they keep. Maybe it's not for retirement, but they feel like they have to keep saving. I'm like, what are you still saving for?
Exactly.
I mean, if you're saving, I want to build up this amount to buy a boat or save up this amount to pay my grandkids' college, that's one thing. But just like saving for the sake of saving to increase your expenses doesn't make any sense to me.
I've got a number of clients that I think they're like saving for a doomsday.
Oh, sure. I get that.
Maybe we're sending them, you know, X dollars every month, and they live on a fraction of that. I touch base with them next year. It's like, so what's your emergency fund sitting at? And they're telling me like $70,000, and it's like,
well, you're not doing much there. Yeah,
it's not doing a whole lot, but it's just been gradually, you know, building over time. Which, you know, I think it's okay for a retiree to have a bit more cash. You know, that gives them a lot of flexibility,
and peace of mind.
Peace of mind,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, when the market goes down. So I'm kind of thought maybe let's brainstorm a couple other things that changed. That these expenses that you might have been used to your working career, maybe your whole life, but certainly a significant part of your life, and all of a sudden these expenses either go away or change pretty dramatically when you're in retirement. So we've covered a couple of them: saving for the 401k, the mortgage. Two others that I think about is that when you're north of 65 or you're 65 or older, you're eligible for Medicare, right? So at that situation, if you were coming out of pocket for health insurance, you could have a pretty dramatic reduction in out-of-pocket expenses, right?
So Fidelity does a nice study on that every year, and the latest numbers I saw from them was like a little over $12,000 a year for a couple that's age 65.
Okay.
So that's
for both of them.
That's for
$1,000
both.
a month.
$1,000 a month for medical related expenses.
Okay.
And that includes the Medicare premiums. So that's
awesome.
So that's
so Medicare premiums and out of pocket expenses.
Okay. And if you think about like the average W-2 employee that has health insurance, you look at people's pay stubs, I mean, they're typically paying $500-$600 a month or more out of their paycheck for health insurance. So it's an expense that they're currently paying. It's and then there's all the co-pays and out of pockets. I actually think that a retiree could find themselves out of pocket potentially a little less than they are, considering the payroll deductions for health insurance.
Okay. That's great. So another one I thought about is insurance, life insurance, right?
Yep.
So, and you're welcome to share your opinion on this too, especially if it's different. But, I'm not a big fan of universal, whole life, variable life, whatever. But I am a fan of term insurance. I've got a wife, I've got 3 kids. They're depending on me for my income. If I die prematurely, they could be putting a rock in a hard place. But at some point, my kids, hopefully, leave the nest and are financially independent on their own. And eventually we've got things like the mortgage paid off, and hopefully we've built up some assets that could be used to offset my income if I were to die prematurely. So certainly by the time I retire, I would think my term insurance doesn't really have the significance that it once did.
Think about what that insurance is for. It's replacing your income. So if you can retire, then you probably don't need life insurance.
Right. I've replaced my income by building a plan for financial independence.
That's right. Now, there is a little nuance to that. So if you think about your spouse and a couple that is primarily living off of their Social Security and they don't have many other assets. If one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse doesn't get 2 Social Security benefits. Right. So you've got to think about it more so than just like your
they get the
earned
survivors
income.
or the larger one.
Well, they would get the larger one, right?
Yeah.
So that's one scenario where maybe life insurance still applies to somebody that retires.
So it depends on the plan. But you certainly
Depends on the person. But in general, if you can afford to retire, you can probably let go of the insurance.
Okay. Something to certainly consider with a good financial advisor you trust. Another thing that, I don't know if you know any of those. So another thing that I think about that could change pretty dramatically once you're retired is taxes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we live in Georgia. I think Georgia got smart. I don't remember how long ago, but if you go south of Georgia or north of Georgia, you go to Florida, you go to Tennessee, you can avoid income tax, state income tax, to be clear. So at some point, I think Georgia realized that their smart retirees were all leaving, and they created the Georgia income tax, retirement tax exclusion, whatever. It's like the flinch to my fur. It's like a really, really long title. But that's pretty substantial, right? So as you get older,
65-year-old is $65,000 per individual. So, and it's retirement income from that individual's account. It is tied to the individual,
right?
So and you can't take 130 out of one person's IRA. It's
okay.
But in order for it to be excluded from state tax,
so it's 65. It's 65,000
per individual.
So if you're married, you could each take out 65 out of your own accounts. And so my understanding is Social Security income,
it's not taxed,
capital gains, or retirement income, like from your 401k, IRA would be considered to fill up this exclusion bucket. And I think it starts as early as age 62.
Yep. That's right.
It grows up.
It's a 32,000 exclusion at 62.
Okay. Yep. So I think that's something that's really helpful to consider is
property tax is less too.
Yeah. Now, is that more county specific?
That is county specific because there are certain counties in Georgia where they don't do that.
Okay. So, but generally a lot of counties, or at least where we live, once you hit a certain age, your property tax drops 62. 62.
Yep.
Drops pretty dramatically.
Substantially.
So that's something to consider too, is not just, I'm not going to be saving for my 401k, but my tax situation may be less.
That's why, like, in general, when we started this conversation out, you're not, I didn't include taxes in the consideration. I wanted to know your after-tax number of what you spend, because we can normally arrange a situation where you pay very little tax in retirement. Not true for everybody, but it's true for a lot of folks because Social Security's can be tax free. We can arrange, depending on what type of accounts you have, you can receive a certain amount of cap gains tax free. Maybe you've got Roth accounts, so maybe we can craft your tax bracket where it's near zero.
And so that's where it's, again, important to have an advisor that can help you with this plan, maybe even a tax professional. Yep. But what you're saying is the method you prefer is let's just peel off all these other things like taxes and say, get down to what you're actually spending, and then let let you as their financial advisor look at their plan, what tax types, where their money is, and try to completely optimize that for taxes.
And we have software that helps us with this.
Right.
So it gets into all the nuances, but as a kind of a blanket statement for anybody that's listening, how do you get a ballpark idea of what you need in retirement? I think that's a really good process that you could follow.
Awesome. Well, any other thoughts about estimating expenses in retirement? I know we've covered a lot of good stuff.
Come see me.
Yeah, nice. I like it. So, all right. So one of the things that I love to do on our shows is to end with gratitude. So would you mind sharing something that you are grateful for?
Oh, man, I'm blessed. It's not to be cheesy, but we've got an awesome culture here. The team is like family. Our clients are like family. Mm-hmm. So I'm grateful for an environment to work and help people with their finances.
That's awesome. I literally wrote mine down in advance because I'm keeping track because I'm trying to be grateful for something different for each episode. And I literally wrote this team down, which is super duper cool. I totally agree with you. We all get along really well. We're all kind of cut from the same cloth. We work really hard. We enjoy being around one another and doing the work we do for the mission and the vision of impacting our clients' lives. And you're right, we just have such great clients. So I'm grateful too to be able to come to work with every day with.
But I gotta say this to her. My wife, she'll be upset, but super grateful for a woman that lets me do all the things that I do.
Absolutely. Smart man, ladies and gentlemen. Smart man. I was just going to give you that opportunity on the next episode. So, but
go ahead and
maybe
throw
just
that
like
out there.
Emily is always like added to what.
Oh yeah, she's definitely listening to this.
Emily, this and Emily. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for being with us today. We appreciate you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Money Pig Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. To stay updated on new episodes, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you found value in today's discussion, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave a rating and review. If you have any questions about the topics we covered, feel free to visit us at goodwinvestment.com and reach out. This episode is produced by evance.net. This podcast is provided for informational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice, a solicitation to buy or sell any financial products, securities, digital assets, or other investment vehicles, nor as a basis for making any financial decisions. Goodwin Investment Advisory is a registered investment advisor with the SEC, CRD number 131193. Please note that the host and or guests may personally own securities, digital assets, or other investments mentioned in this podcast. Investments carry risk and are not guaranteed unless stated otherwise. We strongly recommend consulting with a qualified financial advisor, tax professional, insurance professional, and or legal professional before implementing any strategies discussed in this episode. Lastly, past performance is not indicative of future results.